Greetings to everyone. Welcome back to this educational channel on biology. I'm teacher Janet. Today our topic is translocation, which is the process of transporting organic substances, especially organic food substances, from the leaves where it is produced to other parts like fruits, all right, for the growth of fruits, and to roots and flowers and so forth. So how is the process of translocation carried out by the plant? Does it need to use a pump to push the organic food substances along in the sieve tubes? How are the food substances able to travel to be transported from one place to the next? Let's find out more. Let's look at the learning standards for today's lesson. 4.3 Translocation. Firstly, we should be able to define translocation. What is the meaning of translocation? Number 2, justify the necessity of translocation in plants. Why is translocation necessary? And number 3, describe pathways of translocation in plants. That means, how are the food substances and other organic substances transported in the plants? Firstly, let's define translocation. Learning standard number 1. So the meaning of the word translocation, all right? Translocation is the process of transporting organic substances such as sucrose and amino acids, which are food, right? And hormones in the phloem. Okay, the phloem is the tissue that contains the sieve tubes, okay, which are involved in transporting these substances. From where to where? We must mention from where to where when we're talking about transport of something. Okay, so from leaves. Okay, for example, organic food substances are produced in the leaves through photosynthesis, right? To other plant parts such as the roots and stem, okay, that need these substances, all right, for growth. So the word trans means to cross and locus means the site or place. That means to transport substances across from one place to another. Okay, that's translocation. And in this case, it involves organic substances that are transferred, including organic food substances like sucrose and amino acids, and also hormones. And then the tissue that transports these substances is the phloem. Okay, from leaves to other plant parts. Second learning standard, justify the necessity of translocation in plants. Okay, why is it necessary for plants to carry out translocation? So firstly, translocation helps to transport photosynthetic products from leaves to other plant parts. Now, these photosynthetic products are the organic food substances produced through photosynthesis. So firstly, the first organic substance that's produced is glucose, and then from glucose, right, other products can be produced like sucrose, amino acids, and so forth, right? So all these have to be transported from leaves to other plant parts like roots, fruits, shoot tips, developing flowers that need them for respiration and for growth. Okay, so as an example, if you look at this picture, the leaves is the place, are the places where the food substances are produced through photosynthesis, right? Then these food substances are transported, usually in the form of sucrose. For carbohydrates, usually sucrose is the form in which the carbohydrate is transported, right? And then we also have amino acids that are produced too. So these are also needed for growth, right? So these substances are transported out from the leaves and then to the roots underneath in the soil for growth, to the fruits so that the fruits can grow bigger and bigger, to the shoot tips at the top, okay, so that the young leaves can be formed, and to developing flowers, all right, so that the flowers can grow, okay, and then if there's fertilization, they will produce the fruits. So all these places or parts of the plant need the photosynthetic products or the organic food substances to carry out cellular respiration and produce energy for growth, for cell division and for growth. Okay? So the transport of these substances can be upwards or downwards. That means it can be in different directions, not just upwards. Okay? Whereas for water, water is transported in one direction only, from the roots upwards to the stem and then to the leaves. Okay? But in translocation, the food that comes up from the leaves can be transported upwards, downwards, or sideways. So translocation also transports excess photosynthetic products. That means those products or food products or organic food substances that are in excess. They are no longer needed. Okay, there's too much of them, so they are transported to places where they can be stored. Okay, so they are transported from leaves to other plant parts like the storage organs, rhizomes, tubers, bulbs. They are all storage organs to be stored. Okay, so the plant will use what it needs to use for growth and respiration. The plant will use the organic food substances it needs for growth and respiration, and the excess will be stored, right? So what are all these storage organs? Now, tubers, for example, potato, is an underground storage stem that stores the food substances, right, as starch, right, in the form of starch. Next, we have the rhizomes. Rhizomes, for example, ginger. Ginger is a rhizome. It's a horizontal underground stem, ginger or halia, right, in BM. So horizontal underground stem that grows horizontally and it can store organic food substances. All right. A bulb is a short underground stem which is usually rounded like that. All right, as in the onions. Okay, in the onion, and surrounded by modified leaves. Okay, so the modified leaves or scale leaves in the bulb store the organic food substances like sugars. So this diagram shows us the location or position of the tissues that carry out translocation. All right. So if we cut through the stem and get a cross section of the stem, we find that the tissue that transports the organic substances, which is the phloem, is found here, right, in the outer part of the vascular bundle. This is the vascular bundle, which consists of three parts. The orange part is the phloem, and then the blue strip here is the cambium, and the inner part here, which is green in color, is the xylem, as seen here too. So it's the phloem on the outer part of the stem that transports the organic substances, especially organic food substances, right? And here in the phloem, we see the cell involved, which is called the sieve tube. So translocation takes place in the sieve tube, which have the sieve plates. Can you see the sieve plates here? They have holes in them to allow the transport of organic food substances from one sieve tube here, one sieve tube cell, to the next sieve tube. Okay, so the sieve plate is the one of the unique characteristics or features of the sieve tube. Okay, and if we cut through get the longitudinal section, we can see the phloem is on the outer part of the cross section, in the cross section or the longitudinal section of the stem. Okay, on both sides. All right, and then the center part here is the cambium, the thin strip here, and the green part here is the xylem on the inner side. Then here we have the pith in the center. Now the next learning outcome or learning standard number 3, describe pathways of translocation in plants. So here I have a summary, but let's discuss the whole process of translocation in plants first, all right, in detail. So this is important for SPM essay question, and also for structured question. This is a new section that's not found in the old syllabus. Let's describe the pathways of translocation in plants. Let us now discuss the translocation pathway in a plant. How does a plant transport organic food substances from one part to the next? Right? So this diagram shows you a series of xylem vessels joined end to end to form a long continuous tube. Okay, from the roots to the stem and to the leaves. Then it transports water and mineral salts up this series of xylem vessels, right? Then here in the yellow tube here represents a series of sieve tubes that transport organic food substances. And here we see the end walls of the sieve tubes, which is called the sieve plate, with a pause here to allow the organic food substances to flow, to be transported from one sieve tube to the next, right? Now the orange cells represent the companion cells that are just next to the sieve tubes. Okay, and companion cells have a lot of mitochondria to carry out, to produce energy so that the cells can carry out active transport of substances into the sieve tube. Okay, and then the green cell here represents a cell that can carry out photosynthesis, such as the palisade mesophyll cells or the spongy mesophyll cells. So they have chloroplasts. All right. So these these leaf cells are found inside the leaf, and they carry out photosynthesis to produce glucose as the first product of photosynthesis. Then glucose is converted to sucrose for the transport of organic food substances, right? So next we have this pink cell here, which represents a fruit cell or maybe a cell in the root, right, that receives the organic food substances so that they can carry out the process of growth and metabolism, and also cellular respiration. Right, so let's start with the leaf cells. Now, leaf cells produce the glucose, which is then converted to sucrose. All right, so leaf cells carry out photosynthesis to produce glucose, then they are converted. The glucose molecules are converted to sucrose. Now, then the sucrose is transported from the leaf cells into the companion cells. Then sucrose is actively transported from this companion cell into the sieve tube here. Okay? By active transport that requires energy. So when sucrose enters the sieve tube, the concentration of sucrose in the sieve tube will increase, right? On the other hand, the concentration of water or the water potential in the sieve tube will decrease instead. Okay, when the concentration of the solute or dissolved substance like sucrose increases, then the concentration of the solvent or water decreases instead. They are the opposite of each other. Okay, so let's read from here. Transport of sucrose or solutes into the sieve tube by companion cells here, from the leaf cells, from the leaf cells to the companion cells to the sieve tubes, right? So the sucrose is transported this way into the sieve tubes. Reduces the water potential in the sieve tube, because the concentration of sucrose has increased in the sieve tube. So the concentration of water or the water potential will decrease instead in the sieve tube. Okay. Now, then water diffuses from the xylem vessels, which have higher water potential, into the sieve tube, which have lower water potential, by osmosis. All right. So sucrose has entered, and then water has also entered the sieve tubes by osmosis from region of higher water potential to region of lower water potential in the sieve tube. So this causes a big mass of water to flow into the sieve tubes, and the water diffusion increases the hydrostatic pressure in the sieve tube. What is hydrostatic pressure? Let's look at this part here. Now, hydrostatic pressure is the pressure exerted by a liquid or by fluid at rest in a confined space caused by force of gravity. Okay, that means that now this big mass of water that has entered the sieve tubes will cause pressure, hydrostatic pressure, to increase in the sieve tube. All right, pressure will increase, and this pressure will cause the phloem sac, including the sucrose, to be pushed along the sieve tube. Okay, number 4, to the other plant organs like the roots, the fruits, or the growing shoots. All right, So as the phloem sap is pushed downwards, all right, is this this movement of phloem sap is caused by increase in hydrostatic pressure. So the plant doesn't need a pump like the heart to push, to move the substances along, all right? So it just uses the increase in hydrostatic pressure to cause the phloem sap to move down. The increase in hydrostatic pressure is due to the diffusion of water into the sieve tube by osmosis from xylem vessels. Okay, so remember this word, hydrostatic pressure. So now the phloem sap is pushed along the sieve tube to other plant organs. All right. Now number 5, what happens? Phloem sap, including the sucrose, is transported from the sieve tube to other parts like the stems, roots, shoots, fruits, and tubers for storage. Tubers are for storage. And by active transport. So from the sieve tube, the sucrose is transported to all these other cells like fruit cells by active transport. Okay, so first is transported, the sucrose will be transported into the companion cells, and then from companion cells into the other cells like fruit cells or cells of the roots. So it has reached its destination where the sucrose can be used. All right, it can be converted into other products, can be used, converted to other products and used for cellular respiration, right? And also it can be converted into other products like starch for storage. Right, so next, what happens to the sieve tube at this lower part here? So the sieve tubes here have already lost the sucrose, right? Okay, the sucrose has moved away from the sieve tubes into the fruit cells and other cells. So the concentration of sucrose in the sieve tubes here will be lower. Okay, then what happens to the water concentration or water potential? We call it water potential. There'll be higher water potential in the phloem now. Okay, higher water potential because of the lower solute concentration. That means the condition of the fluid here is rather dilute already. Dilute. And water will diffuse back into the xylem vessels by osmosis, because at this part here in the xylem vessels, the water potential is lower than that of the sieve tube here. So this is the opposite of the opposite condition compared to the upper part, right? So water will diffuse back. Now let's read from here. High water potential in the phloem, okay, or sieve tube, okay, due to the decrease in concentration of sucrose. So high water potential in the phloem causes water to diffuse back into the xylem by osmosis, right? And then lastly, transpiration pulls the water up along the xylem vessel, okay, against the direction of gravity. Okay, now transpiration occurs in the leaves, whereby water evaporates from the leaves, right? Now this will create a pool called the transpirational pool, a force called the transpirational pool that will pull water up from the roots to the stem and to the leaves. Okay, so the water will flow upwards, and then this whole process will start again, whereby the water will diffuse into the sieve tubes after sucrose has been actively transported into the sieve tubes, and then this whole process will occur again, right? So this is the translocation pathway in the plant, and we have to remember all these explanations in detail for essay questions, or even and also for structured questions. All right. Here's a summary of the pathway of translocation in plants. Firstly, sucrose is transported from the leaves to the companion cell, and then there is active transport of sucrose from the companion cell into the sieve tube. This causes a high concentration of sucrose to occur in the sieve tube, but low water potential. All right, that means there's a very concentrated phloem sap, okay, forming here. Thus, number 2, there's diffusion of water by osmosis into the sieve tube from the xylem vessels. Now, the movement of water into the sieve tube causes the formation of high hydrostatic pressure in the sieve tube. That's number 3. Number 4, the high hydrostatic pressure causes the pushing of phylum sap or sucrose along the sieve tube from the leaves down to the roots and to other parts, okay, and also to the fruits. Number 5, when the sucrose or the phylum sap has reached the fruits or the roots, right, there will be transport, active transport of sucrose from sieve tube to the cells of the root or fruit and other plant parts. Thus, the sieve tube will have less sucrose in it. So there's low sucrose concentration in the sieve tube, but high water potential. That means it's like a dilute phylum sap. Dilute phylum sap. Thus, there's diffusion of water by osmosis from the sieve tube back into the xylem vessel that has lower water potential. Okay? And finally, transpiration will pull the water up along the xylem vessel from roots to stem and then to leaves. Okay? Then the whole process repeats. Next, how do we prove that translocation or the transport of organic substances, such as organic food substances, occur in the phylum? How do we prove that? So there are 2 experiments. The first one, I call it the aphid experiment. So it uses a pest or a parasitic organism called the aphid, okay, which feeds on the phylum sap. We use that to prove that translocation occurs in the phylum. So the aphid is a pest that has a long, sharp mouthpart, sometimes called the stylet. Now this is the mouthpart, okay? And here we have the photograph of the aphid. This is just one type of aphid. There are many types of this pest. So the aphid has a long, sharp mouthpart which penetrates the stem or the leaf into the phylum. Now here we see the aphid feeding on the phylum sap, which contains organic food substances, okay, for the aphid. And its mouthpart has penetrated the phylum, which is just below the xylem, in the leaf. This is in the leaf. The phylum is above, the xylem is below here, right? So it then sucks up the sap, the phylum sap, okay, for its nutrition, okay? So it sucks up the sap from phylum of plant stems and leaf, all right? Now, for example, you see the aphid here is sucking up the phylum sap from which part? Now, this part here, the raised part here, is the vein of the leaf, which contains the vascular bundle. That's why it's all, it is concentrated along here. There are so many aphids here. So their sharp mouthparts have pierced the phylum in the vascular bundle in the leaf, so that they can draw up the food substances. Okay. Now, so scientists have cut off the mouthpart from the aphid, and then they found that the phylum sap flows out from it. Okay, from the phylum tissue, the sap will flow out. Like it's a fluid, right? And then it will come out at the top of the mouthpart. Then they took this sap to analyze and found that it contained sucrose and amino acids. Okay, that means this proves that the phylum tissue here contains sucrose and amino acids, right? And this shows that translocation or transport of organic food substances occur in the phylum here. All right. So this is the aphid experiment. Now, the second experiment, which is often tested in the SPM, is the bug ringing experiment. Okay, to prove that to prove the role of the phylum tissue in the transport of organic substances. All right. So the problem statement here in this experiment is, what is the role of phylum tissues in the transport of organic substances? This is experiment 4.3 in your textbook. What is the role of phylum tissues in the transport of organic substances? Okay, so our aim is to investigate the role of the phloem tissues in the transport of organic substances, right? So there's a bark ring experiment where we are going to remove the bark, the ring of bark around the stem of a hibiscus plant, all right? And then after that, we are going to observe the part above the ringed region and the part below the ringed region, where the ringed region is the part where the bark and the phloem have been removed. So after a few weeks, all right, our hypothesis is that the upper part of the stem here, just right above the ringed region, it will become swollen, all right, and that the lower part, just below the ringed region, will shrink. All right, that's our hypothesis. Now the variables here, the manipulated variable are the two parts of the stem, just above the ringed region and below the ringed region. All right, and our responding variable is the condition of the parts of the stem. What's the condition of the stem? Is it swollen or shrinking, or is there any other condition? So the responding variable is the condition of the parts of the stem that's just above and below the ringed region. After a few weeks, maybe after 3 weeks, type of plant is the constant variable. So we use a hibiscus plant, in this case, for the experiment. Materials: hibiscus plant, petroleum jelly, apparatus, ruler and knife. Procedure: cut and remove a ring-shaped part of the woody bark from a branch of a hibiscus plant, right? And then apply petroleum jelly at the ringed region where the bark has been removed, right? So we have to apply petroleum jelly on the ringed region so that it will not get dehydrated, and it's also to protect that area from infection or from mold, from the mold that may grow there, okay, if it's exposed to the air. So water the plant every day so that it can continue to grow and carry out photosynthesis, and leave it for 3 weeks. Then record the observation in the table of results below, right? So our results will show that after 3 weeks, the upper part above the ringed region, from a normal condition, it will start to swell up, and the lower part below the ringed region will shrink. Okay, let's look at the diagram. Right, so here are the results. So at the beginning, we have already removed a ring of bark which also contains the phloem tissues, and then the xylem tissue, or the wood, you see that this part is a bit woody, this is the xylem tissue, is exposed, right? So after leaving this hibiscus plant for 3 weeks, all right, when we observe the stem, we find that the part above the ringed region, the stem immediately above the ringed region, has become swollen, all right? And this is due to the accumulation of the organic food substances like sucrose, okay, which can also be tested. The fluid from here can be tested for the presence of organic food substances. And then the part below here, below the ringed region, shrinks instead, all right? So what's the reason for this? Yes, no organic food substances have reached the lower part because they could not be transported across the xylem here, since the phloem tissue has been removed. So the phloem is responsible for transporting the organic food substances from the top to the bottom. But since it has been removed, therefore, no organic food substances reach the lower part of the stem here below the ringed region. So the stem will shrink because of lack of organic food substances. So this is the discussion for the bark ring experiment, and it's also to answer the questions in the textbook related to this experiment, okay, which is found on the page here. So firstly, what's the purpose of ringing the plant stem? So the purpose of ringing the plant stem is to prevent the products of photosynthesis, which is sucrose, from being transported from the leaves at the top to the roots below. So the purpose of ringing the plant stem here, taking away the ring of bark and phloem, okay, is to prevent the products of photosynthesis, such as sucrose, from being transported through translocation from leaves to roots, right? by removing the ring of bark and phloem from this part of the stem. So number 2, what is the purpose of applying petroleum jelly on the exposed part of the ring, or on the exposed part here? This is to prevent water evaporation or evaporation of water from the ringed region, so keep it moist, all right, and protected from evaporation of water, and also to protect the tree or the plant from mold, which is fungus, and other pathogens, that means other disease-causing microorganisms, all right. So number 3, what are the structures removed when the branch is ringed, or when the stem is ringed, when the ring of bark and phloem is removed? So the structures removed will be the bark and the phloem tissue, right? Now, next question. After 3 weeks, what will happen? So after 3 weeks, at the initial stage, after 3 weeks, the part above the ringed region here, the part above, swells because the phloem has been removed at the ringed region, and the translocation pathway through phloem has been blocked or removed, right? So now the organic food substances accumulate above the ringed region because they cannot flow down to the lower part here, right? So organic food substances accumulate in the part above the ringed region. Now, another observation is that for the part below the ringed region here, okay, this is the ringed region, so below, this part here shrinks, okay, because it does not receive nutrients from the phloem, which has been removed here at the ringed region, right? So after a few months, what will happen to the plant? Or for a tree, a big tree, after 6 months or a year, what will happen to it? If you have taken away a ring of bark, complete ring of bark from around the stem of the tree, what will happen? First of all, the roots do not receive organic food substances. So the first organ to die, to shrivel up and die, are the roots first. Because the leaves can still get water through the xylem vessels that transport water up, right? The leaves can first of all get water. But when the roots die below, then the leaves also will not be able to receive water because there are no roots to absorb the water. All right? Then after that, the whole plant will die due to lack of water. Okay? So at first, the roots will shrivel up and die as they do not receive nutrients from the leaves because the phloem has been removed. And then the leaves will die next because they do not receive water as the roots have died, right? Then the whole plant will die due to lack of water, right? So if a tree has been ringed, that means a ring of bark or phloem has been completely removed from its stem, it will die in the end. So instead of chopping down the tree, sometimes if they want to kill the tree, then they will just remove a complete ring of bark from the tree. All right? So that's the end of our video for this lesson. Thanks for viewing. Please share, like, and subscribe. And until we meet again, take care and goodbye.